Welcome back, my brilliant listeners, to another episode of the Brilliance Professor-ish podcast, where we talk about life unscripted on so many different levels. I am your host, Dr. V, your brilliant solutionist and college professor turned life professor-ish. Remember, if you like this vibe, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that notification bell, and leave your comments and thoughts below. We love hearing from our amazing community of viewers and listeners. So let's ignite a conversation and inspire each other to join the movement of helping brilliant people bankrupt 1 billion burial plots by moving from resume to reinvention to remarkable, so they can live a life poured out above ground before all of that brilliance goes with them underground at the end. Check out our corresponding blog posts for show notes and highlights, and that information will be in the description box below. So today we're kicking off an extraordinary series that ties into our Opulent Thinking for Opulent Opportunities theme that will empower and inspire you to unlock your true desires and reach new heights of success, fulfillment, and purpose. So let's dive into the story of Ray Kroc. It's an oldie but a goodie. So now I just saw this movie and I'm a little geeked up about it, but if you already seen it, watched it, know the story, don't log off yet. Just humor me by continuing to listen, and be sure to share your personal insights and takeaways down below. So Ray Kroc's legendary determination and what it means to show up every day, even when the odds are stacked against you, is really what he's known for. His story highlights the success. His story highlights that success is often outlasting the competition through sheer persistence. And Ray Kroc's story is indeed widely focused on his business model, franchising strategies, and visionary innovation. But in this series, we are exploring his mindset, his thought processes, his leadership style, and personal mastery. And it is my hope that it will offer you valuable insights into what made him a remarkable entrepreneur. So while Ray Kroc wasn't a philosopher or thought leader in the traditional sense, the way he approached business and life reveals certain key traits and mental frameworks that contributed to his success. So in this 9-part series, we will analyze these dimensions and explore key action steps that we can take today that will put us on the path to extraordinary results. So I want you to keep an open mind when you hear anything relating to business. Even if you don't have a quote unquote traditional business, remember that you are your first business and you have anywhere between 5 to 15 departments to lead and manage at any given time. So you are a corporation within yourself. So be sure to listen with that unique perspective. Okay. And so let's jump into relentless determination and grit. And we're going to talk about mindset for a little bit, and not the woo-woo kind. So we're just talking about how to set your mind so that you can accomplish what you want to accomplish. So Ray Kroc's perseverance, like I said before, was legendary. He didn't achieve massive success until he was in his 50s. So how many of us are rushing or trying to figure out what to do, and we're anxious because we're like, oh my gosh, my life is almost over? No, it's not. He started this whole thing in his 50s. And after years of working as a milkshake machine salesman and trying different ventures, he was determined to succeed despite his setbacks. And that is one of the key aspects of his mindset, or how he set his mind to succeed. He firmly believed in persistence and was willing to outwork his competitors and outlast challenges. And one of his famous quotes that started off the movie, and it is often quoted in different success books, leadership books, and so forth and so on. He says, nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. And he had that belief because he said that relentless effort is, you choose that over talent or luck any day. And we'll talk more about that later on. So we're going to talk about grit. And if you don't know what grit really means in the business world, you can also apply it to your life. And it's not just about perseverance. It is sustained effort in the face of repeated setbacks. And in my book, Embracing Grit for Greatness, Becoming Professionally Powerful Through Personal Empowerment, I do talk about the importance of focusing on your character during those times of setbacks, because it's not just about getting up and keep going. You want to make sure that you don't become bitter or resentful. And that's something that can easily happen when you keep getting knocked down over and over. So if you look at Ray Kroc, you know that his ultimate story is really about his gritty perseverance, starting his the journey of building the McDonald's franchise in his 50s and a lifetime of struggle. And so, from what I gather, based on the movie and different clips, Ray's attitude was more on the optimistic side, despite numerous failures. So, I wonder, as you're listening to this, can you say the same about yourself? Yes, failures are going to happen, but what are you doing with those failures? What is your attitude about those failures? Like, how are you keeping yourself together when those failures come? Can you say that you have a more optimistic attitude despite those many struggles? And we'll talk about some of his failures right now. So he didn't just wake up magically and become this well-known real estate mogul and franchise, mogul. He started working as a paper cup salesman, and this was like what in the I think McDonald's was the two brothers started like in the 1940s, and I think Ray came around like in the 50s or something like that, right? But he had already been working, so he didn't just, his first idea didn't work. So paper cup salesman, he was playing piano for a living, and then he was selling multi mixers as a traveling salesman, and that's the part that you see in the movie. Like he would lug out this huge multi mixer machine out of the trunk of his car and go to different businesses, like literally a traveling salesman. And none of those led to the kind of success that he craved. So he had some success, like he was part of a country club, and he had millionaire friends and things like that, but he didn't have that type of success like they had. So he had enough, but he was still looking for more. But he never saw his failures and setbacks as final, which is the key to any entrepreneur. And even if you don't say that you want to be an entrepreneur, I still think it's important to have an entrepreneurial mindset when it comes to the challenges in your life. So a lot of us have been folks, trained to have an employee mindset, but the key to really having the life that you were created to have is to have an entrepreneurial type mindset, even if you don't become a full-time entrepreneur. So one thing I thought was also funny, so we can lighten this mood a little bit, is when you think about if you think about McDonald's, and they are jokingly known for having broken milkshake machines and their ice cream machines never working. And I just thought it was funny how Ray Kroc, the part that they highlight was him focusing on selling his multi mixers and nobody wanted them. But that was just, a little nerdy moment that I found humor in as I was watching the film. So another part, so we talked about some of his early failures and an introduction to grit. But I want to also now move to his mental framework for grit, because what my hope for you is not to just hear me talking about something. I want you to understand that I want you to start looking at things as a series of frameworks and processes and things that can be measured and tracked. So success is not elusive. It's not this abstract thing. Like it's a really tangible thing that you can track. And same thing with mindset, even though it may feel intangible, it is something that you can make very tangible and track if you think about in terms of a framework or a system or a model. All right, so Ray Kroc developed a mental framework of never ending progress, where success wasn't about winning right now, but outlasting challenges. And grit means playing the long game. And I've shared my story about grit when I was getting my doctoral degree. So you too can think of something that took grit and it was in the long game. So if you're thinking about a business or starting, a different venture and you're like, man, it's not working right now. Remember, this is a long game. So we have to get out of that anxiety. The Bible says be anxious for nothing. So think in the long game. So when you release the anxiety, then you have you've cleared mental bandwidth to accept that you're playing this game. You're playing this long game. So I want you to check in with yourself to see how long have you been impatient, or have you been too impatient about something? And I want you to remember that your first success story wasn't overnight, and many of us forget that. So start, creating that mental model for yourself. Now we're going to touch on building resilience. And grit requires resilience. And resilience is built through experience and the ability to withstand discomfort. So nothing about going to this journey to new levels is supposed to be comfortable. For some reason, I don't know why we think it's supposed to be, but it's being able to withstand discomfort. So it's not just bouncing back, but can you withstand? Can you stand up strong, even if you bend, but you're still solid, even when you're not feeling comfortable? And so Ray Kroc pushed through that when through through all of that when McDonald's was experiencing uh, financial setbacks. And McDonald's, just because like the brothers were successful, and even though Ray was still getting like multiple people to buy into different franchises, he himself had financial setbacks. He had to use his own funding to keep the business afloat. So he was on the verge of bankruptcy and losing everything, but he still kept that vision before him. And there were times when other people on his team were more successful than he was on paper, but he never lost sight of that vision. And the question I have for you is your vision so compelling that the thought of it keeps you going, even if you can't pay your light bill, your mortgage, or buy your groceries? Now, this isn't to say go for broke. This isn't to say that you should put your well-being or anything like that above building a business, but maybe it does. Maybe sometimes you do have to go without. And Ray was an example of that. And in the movie, he had late bills and, all these final notices and things coming to him, but he still kept persevering. And like, do you have what it takes to do that? And that's also part of that discomfort type of feeling. So can you have resistance? Can you not resistance? Well, are you resistant to that level of resilience when it calls for you to be at that level of discomfort? And that's something that only you can answer for yourself. And then you have to say, well, is my vision compelling enough to where I can still see the end, even though I'm feeling this discomfort right now? So we're going to talk about next grit versus talent. So let's dispel the myth that talent is more important than persistence. I know a lot of us, especially if you've been traditionally educated as far as going through all your formative years of school and your college education, and many of us postgraduate degrees and things like that, is really about our talent and your gifts and the things that you were born with. And I do believe that we were all created with unique gifts and talents that God put into us. So we have our learned gifts and we have our learned talents and our born gifts. So there are things that we can learn, but guess what? Ray Kroc wasn't the most talented or visionary in the traditional sense. He succeeded through sheer effort and consistency. So a lot of us, we were brainwashed into thinking that our talent alone or our gifts alone should make us successful. And I do believe that many of us have this entitlement towards success. And those of you who shifted to become entrepreneurs and even full-time entrepreneurs and business owners, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where when things didn't happen like you thought, then you're like, well, why not? I'm smart enough. I'm capable. I have this and that. Of course, this should work. And that's not what it's about. So to bring this back to what we we're talking about, the McDonald's brothers were technically more talented and successful than Ray. And they, had the business, even though they tried to franchise and it failed, but their actual system and business, they were more successful, but they didn't have the same level of grit as Ray did. So we hear so many times that there are people who are less talented than we are, but they are more successful than you. And it boils down to their grit and their sheer determination. So what I did using Duckworth's definition of grit, I conducted my own research analysis and explored 5 aspects of grit that can be measured to keep you on the right track. And I discuss them more in my book, Embracing Grit for Greatness, but I'll share them with you. The first one is courage. The second one is being conscientious. The third one is resilience. The fourth one is endurance. And the fifth one is excellent. But I since updated that to exceptionality. And yes, you can still measure that. So none of those traits require the level of talent that you may think. So within my book, I talk about that as I used a framework and some ways that you can rate that and track it so it can be more tangible for you. So you can actually develop grit, which we'll talk about next. And it's not something that you just have. Like sometimes talent you just have a talent or a knack to do something and you just so happen to be good at it. But the person who develops their grit muscle to do the same thing that you're doing, they can outperform you and they could be more successful than you, even though you have your talent. So don't be discouraged if you want to get into something. Since we're talking about entrepreneurship, so I do believe some people just have it. They do have this knack for entrepreneurship, but there are a lot more people who learned the skill of entrepreneurship and developed the grit, and those are the people that you're seeing that are like super successful today. So that should be a ray of sunshine, a ray of hope. Haha, Ray, like Ray Kroc. But that should be inspiration to you that this is something that you can actually learn to do and develop. So let's get into developing grit. So there are other ways, but I shared those 5 traits with you, and those are some of the ways that you can start building your grit muscle. So drawing from Ray Kroc's ability to turn every obstacle into a stepping stone, I want you to think about this visual. So when we hear stepping stones, we think about placing one block or one step in front of us to create this kind of one-dimensional path, right? And this is why it's important to understand grit as a muscle. So instead of thinking like the path is linear and you're putting a block in front of you and you step on that, and even if the path may twist and turn, it's still flat, right? And then let's say if you think of a frog on a lily pad, yeah, they may use some effort to jump to the next lily pad, but it's still on that flat surface. Even if they jump super high, they're gonna still land on the same lily pad in the same kind of space, right? So instead of thinking about the stepping stones on a path, I want you to start thinking about putting the stepping stones like the steps on a ladder. And a ladder goes, I mean, not a ladder, a staircase. A staircase goes up. So if you take every stepping stone, it takes effort to lift something over your head and put it a little bit in front of you. So I want you to sit here, think about it, visualize a staircase. And this in the staircase, the steps are not too far apart, but each one of them just incrementally goes up and a little further out, right? And sometimes you can, jump over 3 or 4, walk up 3 or 4 steps at a time or jump 3 or 4 steps, but they're still laid out in an upward motion a little bit above the next one. So if you're thinking about a stone, it still takes effort for you to lift and put. So you need that muscle to keep doing the same thing over and over until you get to the level where you desire. And the bigger your vision, the bigger those stones or the steps will be. So that's why you need that grit muscle. Think about some of your past success things where you had to develop grit. Even if you unconsciously had to develop grit, I'm telling you to bring that unconscious action into your conscious, so that way you could be more intentional and knowing that success is not a secret, and your success was not a fluke. So you have those muscles, but they may be in atrophy. So I want you to start building that and realizing that it was your internal strength that got you to where you were going, and not just your talent or your natural gifts. So when you start to do that, you'll realize that you have this physical evidence for you to keep moving forward, even though it's internal. So that way, when outside circumstances are coming around you, you have something to lean on that keeps you going instead of quitting. All right. So let me know down below if that is resonating with you and if you can understand that visual. So no longer are you thinking about stepping stones in a linear path. You're thinking about stepping stones as it relates to building your own personal staircase to the level that you desire to go. All right. So as we go and wrap up, I want you to take some action steps. So it was great that we had this lovely interaction with this story, but now I want you to get to work. So I don't want you to just listen to me for inspiration and motivation. I want you to get to work. So there are 3 action steps, and you can either do one or all 3 of them. So the first one is daily commitment. I want you to write down one long-term goal in one area of your life. Not all of them, just pick one thing. And I know you're probably in your mind like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do, so much to accomplish, not enough time. You're building a muscle. So it is okay to focus on one thing, because life is still going to happen. You can still do all the other things, but I want you to be intentional about one thing. And I want you to write down one small action that you will commit to do every single day for 30 days. See, not even 90 days or 6 months, just 30 days, no matter how difficult or how inconvenient. So If that's something with health, I want you to write down, I will walk 20 minutes or even 10 minutes every single day for 30 days. Don't make this huge. You can do, I will say 5, but don't do that. That's a cop out. Do 10 minutes. You can find 10 minutes and do this for 30 days. I'm not talking about 5 days a week and that counts as a month. I'm talking about a full calendar, 30 days. So do that. If that is, you want to read, more books, well, find time to read. Now, this you can do 5 minutes or read a certain amount of pages in a day for 30 days. If there's something in your business, if there's something in your relationship, if there's something in your creativity, your intellectual state, whatever it is, find one thing and do that for 30 days straight, just one thing. The second action step that you can do is to practice being resilient. So identify a recent setback. You don't have to go too far down the hole, but find one thing you're like, man, that did not happen the way I thought it was going to happen. And I want you to reframe it as a lesson rather than a failure. And for extra credit, I want you to show appreciation for the teacher of that lesson as well, because you can't be grateful for the lesson and hate the teacher. That is something I learned, and that's really where true transformation starts to happen, right? So it's one thing to reframe, oh, well, I didn't get this job, but I could say that I was, that here's the phrase, like your setback is a setup for your comeback. That's all well and good, but let's take a deeper dive into that and read. So we got that part down, but I want you to look at what happened, why that setback happened. Like, did somebody set you up? Did they sabotage you? Was it the economy, a person, whatever it is, and then show appreciation for the teacher or the catalyst of that situation, and you will start seeing a difference in your resilience. And then you can get an accountability partner. Now, accountability, first of all, you are your accountability partner. You have to be accountable for yourself. So no one can make you be accountable. So you have to make that commitment to yourself. But then finding someone that you can have true accountability with, where you say, this is where I'm on track. I want you to check in with me to make sure I'm doing this. But then they also have to be a person that can call you out on your BS, right? Just real talk, not just saying, oh, it's okay, you retired today. No, get it together. Or they could be the ones say, you start over. You miss a day, you start over. And to have that level, it may require you to make an investment in some kind of way to join a community or work with someone directly, right? And so you want someone who will lovingly call you out on your BS instead of giving you an out. So to recap, the 3 action steps that you can take, either one or all of them, is to find a daily commitment, to practice your resilience by reframing a failure, or to find an accountability partner or accountability community to where they can help you with your daily commitment or your resilience practice. All right. So that is, as we wrap up, let me know which action step you're going to focus on. And I want a start date and an end date. Yes, I told you this is about being tangible, taking all of that abstract knowledge and information and bringing it down into the tangible, physical things that we can see, touch, and feel. Because a lot of us have been, I believe, a lot of us have been avoiding success because it's too abstract. And as we will see, as we continue to study Ray, everything he wrote down and had it in front of him, he kept it in front of him, tangible, not just in his mind. So let's just start there. So I trust that you enjoyed this first episode of Mastering the Entrepreneurial Mindset, Lessons from Ray Kroc, where we discuss the power of relentless determination and grit. So be sure to stay tuned for our next episode where we will discuss seeing beyond the present. So remember, embracing your uniqueness and persisting through challenges, reinventing yourself, finding balance, and overcoming adversity are all key ingredients for a fulfilling life. And it is my hope that something I said provided value, challenged your thinking, or made you say, Let me know your thoughts below, and let's turn this monologue into a dialogue, and I can't wait to hear from you. So remember, keep living life unscripted, and it is your unique spark that is the igniter to someone else's fire. So as we are venturing off, and as you're beginning your day or ending your day, Remember to be well, to be empowered, to be bold, and to be brilliant. Until next time.